She spent her entire childhood in a wheelchair, feeding tube, breathing machine, shaved head. Over 100 doctor visits, surgeries she didn't need, medication that made her sick, and the mother the whole world called a saint. But here's what nobody knew: she could walk the whole time, and the person making her suffer was the one person she trusted most. This is the story of Gypsy Rose Blanchard, born in 1991 in Louisiana, a girl who grew up believing she was dying because her mother told her so every single day for over 20 years. This is not just a true crime story. This is the story of the most intimate betrayal imaginable. A mother, a daughter, and a lie that consumed everything. To everyone on the outside, Dee Blanchard was a miracle. A single mother raising a profoundly sick child, alone, tirelessly, without complaint. Gypsy had leukemia, they said, muscular dystrophy, epilepsy, vision problems, hearing loss. She used a wheelchair. She had a feeding tube. Her head was shaved because of the chemotherapy. Dee told everyone. Charities stepped in. Habitat for Humanity built them a specially adapted pink house in Missouri. Make-A-Wish granted Gypsy a trip to Disney World. They met country star Miranda Lambert. The community rallied, donations poured in, and Dee smiled at every camera. Grateful, devoted, selfless. But behind that pink front door, something was very, very wrong. Gypsy knew something the rest of the world didn't. She could walk. She had always been able to walk. She didn't need a feeding tube. She could eat solid food. Her head was shaved because her mother shaved it. Not because of chemotherapy, because of control. And this is where things started to change. Doctors began to notice as far back as 2007. A neurologist found no evidence of Gypsy's supposed conditions. He wrote in his notes that he suspected Munchausen by proxy, a disorder where a caregiver, almost always a mother, fabricates and introduces illnesses in the child to gain sympathy and attention. He never reported it. Another doctor raised concerns in 2009. Authorities visited the home. Dee charmed them. They left, and Gypsy went back to her wheelchair. Think about that for a second. Doctors knew, authorities visited, and nothing changed because Dee was too good at the performance. As Gypsy got older, she started pushing back. In 2011, she ran away with a man she met at a science fiction convention. Dee found her, brought her home, smashed her computer, handcuffed her to the bed, and told her that if she ever tried to leave again, she would lose her legs. But Gypsy didn't stop. She found the internet, and on a Christian dating site in 2012, she met a man named Nicholas. Nick was obsessed with her immediately. He told her he would do anything for her. Anything. And Gypsy finally had a plan. This wasn't escape anymore. This was something else. Let that sink in. A young woman was so desperate to escape the only life she had ever known, that the only way she could see was through a knife. On the 9th of June 10, 2015, Nick traveled to Missouri. He waited outside. Gypsy let him in. She handed him gloves, duct tape, a knife. Then she went to the bedroom and covered her ears because she knew exactly what was about to happen, and stabbed her 4 times in the back. Dee Blanchard was 48 years old. Afterwards, Gypsy and Nick took over $4,000 in cash from the house. They called a taxi, took a bus to Wisconsin, and as they left, witnesses on the street saw Gypsy Rose Blanchard walking. No wheelchair, no feeding tube, no shaved head, just a young woman, finally free. Back in Springfield, nobody had seen Dee or Gypsy for days. Then someone checked Facebook. A post had appeared on Dee's page. It read, "That is dead," followed by something explicit about what had been done to her. Friends called the police immediately. Officers arrived at the pink house. Inside, they found Didi, face down in her bed, stabbed to death. Gypsy's wheelchair was still in the house. Her medication was still on the shelf, and she was nowhere to be found. The entire community assumed she had been abducted. A helpless, disabled girl taken by whoever killed her mother. And that's when everything changed. Police traced the Facebook post. The IP address led them straight to Big Bend, Munchausen, to Nicholas' home, and sitting right there beside him was Gypsy Rose Blanchard, walking on her own 2 feet. When investigators started digging into Gypsy's medical history, what they found was staggering. Over 100 doctor visits, unnecessary eye surgery, removal of her salivary glands, a feeding tube she never needed, years of medication that either did nothing or made her worse. Didi had stolen prescription pads from hospitals. She had switched the doctors moments anyone questioned. She had altered Gypsy's birth certificate to make her seem younger. She had kept Gypsy entirely dependent, isolated from the world, convinced she would die without her mother. Think about that for a second. Gypsy Rose Blanchard was 23 years old. She had spent her entire life believing a lie told by the one person who was supposed to protect her. Gypsy Rose Blanchard was charged with first-degree murder, but prosecutors took something important into account. She was not just a perpetrator, she was also a victim of nearly 2 decades of medical abuse, psychological torture, and total isolation. In 2016, she pleaded to second-degree murder. She was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Nicholas was convicted of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life without parole. But then something unexpected happened. The world started paying attention, not just to the crime, but to what Didi had done. The HBO documentary, the Hulu series, the interviews, millions of people watched, and overwhelmingly, they understood. In December 2023, after serving 8.5 years, Gypsy Rose Blanchard walked out of prison, and this time, nobody was surprised she was on her feet. The world greeted her release like a homecoming. She gave interviews on Good Morning America, CNN, The View. She got married while still in prison. She wrote a book. She built a life on social media. And then in April 2024, she and her husband separated and divorced. Gypsy Rose Blanchard is still navigating what freedom looks like, still figuring out who she is outside the world of what her mother made her, still learning at 32 years old what it means to be healthy, what it means to be believed, what it means to simply be. Her father said something simple after her release. He said he was happy the first time he saw a video of her walking on her own, because for her whole life he had never told her she could. Every person in that community believed Didi Blanchard, the neighbors, the doctors, the charities, the cameras, they all believed her because she was a mother, and we are taught that mothers protect. But Didi Blanchard did not protect her daughter. She consumed her, turned her illness into a performance, turned her suffering into sympathy, and the people who should have stopped it saw the signs and looked away. Gypsy Rose Blanchard spent 23 years believing she was sick. She was never sick. She was just never free. And the most disturbing part, she had to go to prison to finally be free. This has been Verdict After Dark. Subscribe, because next week, the truth gets darker.